Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for another Chick Tracks for June. This is your general trauma trigger warning. We're just going to choose one of these. I haven't previewed it whatsoever, and Jack Chick tends to hold very outdated, unscientific, religious, fundamentalist, extreme kind of views. So if you have any kind of trauma trigger, this might not be the video for you right now. You can check out some different videos in the details section below. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. The title of this Chick Tract is Home Alone, and I'm sorry. Knowing Jack Chick's beliefs and seeing this child huddled in a corner, frightened with the title and the topic, I'm sorry. Let's just go ahead and get started. As usual, I'm going to describe the panel for people that are not viewing, they're just listening. So we have a woman on the phone. She appears to be middle-aged, and she says, "You're not going on your business trip? This could cost you your career. Why, Barbara? Our sitter was in an accident. We can't leave Charlie home alone, and it's too late to find someone else. What about Coach Brad? He could stay with Charlie. Do you think he would? This could save my career, Lucy." Now, knowing the foreshadowing that we have from the front page there, I think this is also a criticism of women who work. This is going to be one of those cases, like I'm just going to call it right now, this is going to be some type of child abuse tract. So this idea now would be that the child is going to become gay because of this Coach Brad character and some kind of abuse, and that somehow I think the mother might blame herself, that if she was only home like a good Christian woman and taking care of their child and not working and not being so career oriented, that this never would have happened and her son wouldn't get the demon of homosexuality. I'm going to predict we're going to see demons. We've seen demons of homosexuality in the past too. So again, I'm sorry. Wow. So in the next panel, we get Coach Brad. There's two women looking at him sort of adoringly. One lady looks like she's going to steal his wallet, but the other one, there's a heart, so we can kind of tell she likes him. It's kind of a caricature, sort of, big jaw, big smile, big toothy grin kind of thing. But it also, just because of their jaws looking so similar, it could look like he's at a family reunion. I don't know what Coach Brad is interested in. I think that's all I'm going to say about the art on this panel. We are told that Coach Brad is 26 years old. Everybody likes Brad, and women are nuts about him. Brad clears his schedule just for Charlie. The parents are thrilled. What could possibly go wrong? "Charlie's in good hands. Enjoy your trip." "Thanks, Coach." "Bye, Mom." I guess he's going to sound nasally. No, I'm going to make him sound like this kid that I knew in 7th grade. "Bye, Mom." He's had like this nasal thing. We see this dog. This kind of appears in Jack Chick's. Some of his picture, I don't know. His art kind of changes from tract to tract. Sometimes it's really, really realistic looking. Other times it's overly cartoony. In this one, we sort of get this half and half. But this is his dog. I think the dog's name is Spike, that shows up every so often. And it just has sort of a Looney Tunes kind of appearance to him. So Spike might show up. So Coach, I'm trying to remember what the Coach Brad voice. "What grade are you in, Charlie?" "9th. "Do you take social studies?" "Sure, Coach." Uh-oh. I'm a social studies teacher. Please. I don't know what's coming next, but I'm like, what can social studies have to do with any of this? Is it gay marriage? Is it... I'm trying to think, what could Jack Chick do with this? I guess, let's just go. Oh. "Do they teach you about alternative lifestyles?" Of course." "Do they tell you it's okay to be gay?" "All the time." "Being gay is cool, Charlie." "Really?" Some of our best athletes are gay. Whoa. And it says that Brad is making his move. This is his move, huh? Now, I don't know. I've seen a lot of To Catch a Predator. This isn't usually the move, right? Usually those TCAP guys really dive right in. But let's now Jack Chick has this belief, and fundamentalists have this belief. I used to have this belief that being gay was something that you were influenced into. And so we see here being gay is cool, Charlie. So we see that Coach Brad is going to influence him. Hey, it's really cool, I'm the coach. And a lot of these athletes, like the cool, big, buff, strong guys, the stereotypical, all-American teenage boy that the other boys want to be and they look up to and so on, in this Jack Chick world. Hey, they're gay. Don't you want to be cool like them? You want to be muscular like them. You want to be popular like them. You want to get good grades like them. Don't you also want to be gay like them? So in one of the other videos, I talked about how this idea that you could be influenced to be gay, I think only works if you're bisexual. And so I had decided, in my opinion, Jack Chick must be bisexual, because only a bisexual thinks that you could be slowly influenced into having sex with the same sex when you're not attracted to the same sex. So any person that, they're not into that, they have no sexual attraction that way, this is not a person that's going to be like influenced into it if you're cool like the cool kids, So this is the move Brad is making. I don't know, this is a very lame move. They didn't choose to be gay, Charlie. They were born that way. Oh, well, what? Charlie says, oh. And Coach Brad says, just like me. And now we get Jack Chick coming in here. Whoa, not true, Charlie. Brad was not born that way. At the age of 11, he was sent to juvenile hall for stealing. There he was raped by 2 older boys. That act brought Brad into the homosexual world. So the first one that we read also had the same concept, that somebody gets raped and becomes gay. And that was really odd, because in that Chick tract, there was a woman who was raped as a child. And so she hated men and lusted after women. And that's kind of odd for the same thing to happen to a boy, but instead of hating men and lusting after women, he lusts after men. Now, when you bring this up to the fundamentalist type Christians, that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. They say, oh, it's because boys are influenced by men, so they see older boys or older men doing this. They think, well, that's what I should be doing. And of course, Jack Chick. At midnight, Brad and Charlie watch late night cable TV. So for those of you that are too young to remember late night cable TV, this is when the sexy stuff would come on. This is the stuff that, you might see a boob. There would be softcore pornography. Not so much hardcore pornography, but I guess it depends on which cable. Cinemax used to have the nickname Skinemax because it was so sexual. We didn't have it in our home because of that, but I knew about it just hearing about it. Same with stuff like HBO. They used to call it HBO, and that's just that's what Jack Chick is talking about here. If you guys are not aware of what late night cable TV is referencing, it's just porn is on TV. Just relax, Charlie. And Charlie gasps. Charlie knows nothing about God or morals. His teachers were no help. He has no defenses. Wow. 3 sentences, and this is really amazing. So Charlie, somehow being in the United States, because that's where everything occurs, Jack Chick doesn't have a world outside of the United States. He knows nothing about God, somehow. And also somehow, if you know nothing about God, you know nothing about morals, or perhaps Jack Chick is saying. He just happens to not know anything about morals, which is a little bit odd to say that, because, you know, morality is your sense of what you believe to be right or wrong. And for Charlie to be gasping and for Coach Brad to say, just relax, it shows he's tense, he's not into it. And that would mean he knows this doesn't feel right for me. So automatically, just from this situation, we can see that Charlie already has a sense of what feels right and what feels wrong in this interaction, okay? His teachers were no help, so this is blaming the teachers, that if because they said being gay is natural, or that being gay is okay, the way that Brad had phrased it, that somehow that meant they condoned child abuse, they condoned non-consensual sexual actions, they condoned sexual actions between an adult and a minor, all because of that. So of course this doesn't make any sense. You know, as a teacher myself, sometimes we do have to talk about sensitive topics, you know, and I tell them, if something feels wrong, just it probably is. So please remove yourself from that situation if you have to, because we do unfortunately have to talk about some bad things that happen around the world when we talk about geography and culture, and, you know, cultural issues and problems that are arising in different countries. It also says that he has no defenses. I mean, I'm sure Charlie's got, you know, 2 fists, right? Those are defenses. So this idea that he has to be taught to push somebody away if they are interacting with his body in a way that's uncomfortable, you know, that's really odd. So again, we're seeing a lot of blame being placed on the teachers, blame being placed on his family, perhaps just his mom, maybe it's just a single mom. So we're blaming everybody else, that Charlie somehow needs to be taught how to say no, which to an extent, you know, there is a difference in abuse of authority, that kind of problem here, right? So we do need to encourage young people to definitely get help and to say no and how to push people away, that kind of thing. But this is just so strange for Jack Chick to believe that just because somebody is not Christian, they condone harming minors. That's such a weird thing. So, oh gosh. So the next panel, we see Coach Brad. We see him standing next to the sofa. Charlie's on the sofa, and there appears to be this demon leaving Brad and going into Charlie. So there we go. We got the demon of the gay, right? And it says, to oppose the coach would be intolerant, quotations, bold. This made it easy for Brad to destroy his innocence. Again, what does Jack Chick think that is being taught in school? What does he think that people, even outside of a classroom, talk about when we're talking about intolerance? Intolerance is something like beating somebody up because they're gay. It's not, oh, well, I'll let you steal my wallet because if I say no, then that's homophobic, right? What? So now, okay, the spirit that oppressed Brad now invaded Charlie. So in evangelical and Pentecostal circles, possibly fundamentalists in general, the idea is that there's possession, where they control like a lot of your behaviors, and then there's oppression, where this demon is basically really influencing you to do certain things. So they're basically, you know, you can kind of think about them similarly. But we talked about spiritual oppression. It's basically you're attacked by demons and you are influenced by demons. I think a marked difference between the two would be that possession includes a lot of things that are physically damaging to oneself, tearing your hair out, slamming your head against the wall, scratching at your skin until you draw blood, that kind of thing. The spirit really wants to destroy your flesh. But with oppression, This is really influencing you to do sinful things. You may, like we see Coach Brad here, he's outwardly very successful. He is employed. He's physically fit, etc. So this would not be similar to possession in that sense. Just he's living a sinful life and existing sinfully. So that would be spiritual oppression. So it says here, long before this happened, the stage had been set. The cry in our schools has been to defend the downtrodden homosexuals. So we see some teacher, it looks like a kindergarten teacher, but she's wearing kind of a short dress and low cut. You know, we can see a little cleavage for a kindergarten, for any teacher, that is a bit much. So we see here that they are, showing the teacher is very sexualized, doesn't really have an understanding of what is appropriate to wear at school. And she's sitting on a chair, little kids are sitting around her, and she's going to read a book she's holding up called Billy's Two Daddies. And one kid asks, "What's the day of silence for?" I mean, wow, that's interesting if they're teaching little kids that, And the teacher says, "For people to be tolerant," quotations again, "and for LGBT kids to feel good." And then this child says, "Yay." Now, the day of silence, isn't the day of silence for representing the people that have been killed due to being LGBT? Isn't that what it's for? If it's different, I'll change it. I'll make a note of it in my pinned comment if it's not that. But that's what I understood the day of silence for. So not this idea of people being tolerant and for LGBT kids to feel good. It's to remember that people were murdered. That's what it's to remember. They were murdered. They were victims of hate crimes. They were killed because they were lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, etc. So for Jack Chick to be downplaying this as, oh, it's just some stupid sympathy crap that the gays wanna have, so everybody feels good and fluffy and whatever. It's a type of Memorial Day. That's what it is. It's a Memorial Day. That it's so weird how you just diminish. Not weird. It's predictable, I guess. So they says the gays played the sympathy card. Really? Let's see. Oh, LGBT is explained, just in case you didn't know. Okay. So they said they played the sympathy card and it's paid off. So we see a college campus, it looks like. There's a guy with a Leviticus 18:22 shirt, which we've checked a few times in the other Chick tracts. This is the one where it talks about man lying with mankind. As one lies with womankind, it's an abomination. They should both be put to death. So he's wearing a shirt that says, "You should die. I'm okay with you being killed because you're gay," which again kind of works with that day of silence, right? It's really, really missing the point here, Jack Chick. So this guy wearing the shirt, he's getting yelled at by people. "Intolerant bigot. You're a sick homophobe. How dare you question our lifestyle?" Again, gay people don't use lifestyle. Nobody who's transgender calls it a lifestyle. This is, this is all words that Christians use. It's like if you've never interacted with anybody who's LGBT, you just, how dare you question our lifestyle? That's not what they would say. Leviticus 18:22, isn't that the verse where you think it's okay to kill people because they're gay? And then the guy would be like, yes, or some variation thereof. And then they would say, "Wow, that's really intolerant. Wow, you're a freaking bigot. Wow, you're a sick homophobe." But as the "how dare you question our lifestyle," more like, "How dare you proudly wear something that calls for murder?" That's a very different idea about questioning our lifestyle. And it says, like sheep, the crowd follows the current trend, which was brilliantly created by the LGBT organizations. There's the gay agenda mentioned here. But it is interesting when Christians say that other people are like sheep because they believe it is good to be like sheep that Christ is your shepherd. Gay brainwashing floods our TV channels with gay sitcoms, gay news, and gay films. I don't know how much of this, when was this made? Let me just go back real quick. 2008? I don't know how much of this was gay programming. There were programs like sitcoms with gay characters. You know, that was, or films that included gay people. But to my recollection, there weren't like films about being gay or anything like that. This one I think is from the 90s, but I for some reason I'm just thinking of Mrs. Doubtfire, probably because of the way that, you know, it was just very ridiculous. The guy invading the house, you know, and dressed up in a different way, and you know, just pretending he was something he's not to get access to these kids. Maybe that's why I'm thinking Mrs. Doubtfire. But his, you know what, his brother was gay, and this was barely mentioned, right? This was, you know, just kind of a joke here and there, like, hey, I want you to make me a woman. And then he said like, oh, I'm so happy, or something like that. The end. You know, that was it. It wasn't like we saw any kissing. We didn't hear any, you know, as he's styling Robin Williams' character into Mrs. Doubtfire. It wasn't like he said, you know, oh, wow, those Christians again, gosh, they keep attacking our business. You know, it's not like he said anything like that. So I don't know. I'm trying to think what gay stuff was out there. Gay news, maybe news about gay stuff. I mean, yeah, there were, you know, flyers and things in places like Seattle and Los Angeles and you know, Austin probably, and those kinds of, you know, bigger cities. But I don't know if there was any, you know, like on CNN, there wasn't like the gay segment of the news, you know. Yeah, it's really weird. And so he says, repetition is wearing out public opposition. Laws are steadily being rewritten to make gays a protected class. I mean, again, he says this like it's a bad thing that gay people are not able to be beaten to death, that you can't use trans panic as a defense, which, if you don't know, trans panic was this idea that you meet somebody and you go somewhere to have sex with them, and you find out that person is transgender, you lose your mind, kill that person, and that's your defense. Was, I was so overcome with whatever that I had no choice but to murder this innocent person. That's the trans panic defense. How, you know, this isn't like, again, this isn't gay people being a new religion that's trying to infiltrate its way into, you know, the larger society, even if it was, you know, whatever. But it's not like that. It's people being fired because they're gay, people being murdered because they're lesbians. You know, this is not what. You know, again, it's this like making it seem like it's such a minor thing, and wow, they're just trying to change people's minds. They're trying to not die, Jack, chick. They're trying to not die. So we see this arrow here that says, but there's another side to homosexuality. So we've got, in the early 1980s, there's a doctor, and there's two men talking to the doctor. One guy looks sad, but one guy's angry. I don't know why he's angry. He doesn't have a speaking role, but he's just pissed off looking at the doctor. And this guy says, why are so many of our friends getting sick? Is there something going around? And the doctor says, well, it's possible. Within the gay community, a wave of terror began. What was it? I wonder if he's going to use GRID, gay-related immunodeficiency. That's what AIDS used to be called. Oh! Guys, I did not preview this, so yeah, that's lived and breathed this kind of nonsense. Let me tell you, that was my upbringing, and teenage years and early adulthood. So in the next panel, we see another doctor, and then two people talking to the doctor, perhaps older people, perhaps parents of somebody that has GRID. So it says, a horrifying plague spread primarily among promiscuous gay men. What's it called, doctor? The doctor says, GRID. It's gay-related immunodeficiency disorder. Homosexuals demanded it be called by another name. The medical establishment caved in. Well, maybe they caved in because calling it gay-related immunodeficiency disorder does two things. Number one, it makes it sound like being gay is what causes the disorder, which it's not. It's a virus. And the other thing makes it seem like if you're not gay, you can't catch it. Both of those types of misinformation are very dangerous because you thought you couldn't catch it if you weren't gay. This idea that it's only for gay people. It's only spread by gay sex. And of course it's spread by, different types of bodily fluids like sharing needles. It's spread by blood transfusions. It can be spread from the mother to the baby. These are different ways that it can be spread. So to call it something that only says it's related to being gay, that does a huge disservice. It's not that the medical establishment caved in. It's the medical establishment had a more descriptive name that made people aware anybody could catch it. This is a virus. So we see a guy in the next panel with, he looks kind of like a skeleton. So that is great. And he's in a hospital room. He's hooked up to all kinds of wires. And it says, now it's called AIDS. How could this horrible disease spread so fast? Gays are desperate to hide this fact. So we got another arrow. A well-known study by Bell and Weinberg showed that 43% of male homosexuals had over 500 sex partners during their lifetime. They spread over 50 diseases, STDs, that shortened their average lifespan to less than 50 years. Some STDs are incurable. Homosexuality is a study of diversity among men and women, Simon and Schuster, 1978. If it's interesting, I will make a side video. But again, this doesn't mean you have AIDS. This means you have sex partners. And again, consenting adults, who really cares, right? So this isn't, so what? So what? If they're spreading diseases to each other, okay. So if they're going to be having lots of sex and they are spreading disease, what should we do? We should also teach about STDs and sexual health for all kinds of people in school. So rather than teaching, you would use a condom to prevent pregnancy, and a couple of gay men are not going to be worried about pregnancy, let them know, hey, these condoms are about, preventing the spread of disease and pregnancy. Homosexual perversion is everywhere, in every nation, culture, and neighborhood. Hey, there's Ray. Ray showed up in a previous, he was the gay Episcopalian pastor, reverend, and he's the same. Reverend Ray, he's gay, and Jesus loves me, he says. Mainstream churches pervert what God clearly said about homosexuality. The gay community is at war with God. No, Jack Chick, the gay community is just trying not to die and trying to have the same rights as everybody else. The fact that Jack Chick sees it as a war, and not just a war, but a war with God. There's a lot of stuff right there. There's in this little sentence. First, it's this idea that everybody acknowledges God and believes in God, but they just hate God. This is a very common belief among this type of Christian, that atheists like myself hate God. You guys maybe have seen it in other atheists' comment sections. You may have seen it in my comment section where people talk about, you must hate God because why are you making videos about this if you really didn't care? You believe in God, you're acting against him, etc. So there's that belief. The other one is that everything is demons and angels. This is why we see these demons of gayness. So everything is like of the devil or of God. What I mean by this is that life isn't just life. It's all a type of spiritual warfare. That's the phrase that's used a lot, is spiritual warfare. And so this isn't just people trying not to get murdered by bigots. This is people that are inhabited by Satan being used as a tool to also reach and harm and influence other people that are not influenced by Satan. So they are influenced by Satan. So that way Satan wins more souls and God loses souls. That's what they really believe. This is not my, like, the same thing as what I was saying about, Jack Chick being bisexual or whatever. That's just kind of like a side thing, kind of for fun. This is what Jack Chick really believes. This is what I used to believe as well. So this is what's in that type of belief system. The other thing as well is that when you say the gay community is at war with God, you feel like, as the Christian saying this, you feel like you are fighting this holy fight on behalf of God. And you have to do it, because otherwise God will be upset with you, that you were quiet, that you were complacent, that you went along with this, that you got into it, like our Reverend Ray, the gay here is. So there's that idea that you have to speak up, because this isn't just your thoughts versus their thoughts, your Christian lifestyle versus their gay lifestyle. It's not just that, live and let live. This is something God will support you in doing. So when you're lashing out against gay people, when you're writing down that, these laws, they're just so stupid, and yeah, they're preventing people being killed, whatever. This makes it okay for you to do that. So that's all wrapped up in that the gay community is at war with God. So it says, no wonder they're mad. See for yourself. So again, they're mad because they're fired simply for being gay. They don't have access to spousal health care for military spouses, for example, at this time, and so on. Murder aside, right? So we see after Noah's flood, perversion flourished in Babylonian religions and spread worldwide. We can see Babylonian religion available from Chick publications, maybe not today. Two of the worst cities were Sodom and Gomorrah. They were exceedingly wicked. So we've talked about Sodom and Gomorrah before. In Ezekiel, it specifically says they were all about, they were punished because of their inhospitability, their lack of hospitality, their greed, their laziness, that kind of thing. It had nothing to do with being gay until it's mentioned in Jude. He's probably going to bring up Jude, verse 7. But we see here, this is kind of a weird thing to see. So in this panel, we have two men in the foreground. They're looking lovingly at each other, but they look like hippies. These are probably people Jack Chick saw in the 70s, and he's just really just drawn them. This is very hippie style. And then in the background, we have a guy chasing a young boy. So again, this belief that gayness is like a spiritual disease that's contracted through child molestation, and that's how it exists. It's pretty messed up. So we see in the next panel the fire and brimstone. This one isn't as violent as the previous one, and it just talks about the men rejected God's plan for marriage between a man and a woman and burned in lust for one another. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that at all. I mentioned in, when these are popped up, that I read this when I was a Christian. I just wanted to read the story for myself and not hear a pastor's interpretation of it. And all it says is they are unrighteous. And Lot argues, I bet I could find some righteous people. He tries, and some angels show up, and the men go to Lot's house where the angels are, and they say, hey, let those men out. We want to know them, which, we want to have sex with them. And Lot says, no, but you can take my daughters. They've never had sex before, and you can just do whatever the hell you want with them. And the guys say, no, we'd rather have those beautiful men. That's it. There was nothing in there about they didn't get married, that this was just like one big queer community. Lot is never condemned for offering up his daughters for this massive rape session. Nothing. So this is all Jack Chick's personal interpretation. It has nothing to do with what it said. So after God rescued Lot and his family, God's judgment hit. We see the meteors, I guess, fireballs coming out of the sky. Just reminded me of my old Magic the Gathering decks. I used to... Fireball's pretty good. That's a pretty good spell. So, here we are, Jude 7. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication, and then this is in bold, and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. As, we talked about before, Ezekiel, which was a lot closer in time period to when Sodom and Gomorrah allegedly happened, at least from when it was written about. It was really just mentioned that they were just kind of jerks, they were lazy, they were greedy, etc. They didn't help the poor, they were just pretty bad people in general. It doesn't mention whatsoever about sexual immorality or the Hebrew view or the Israelite view of sexual immorality. It doesn't mention any of that. Only much later in Jude, at this time when Christians are having this early Christianity, very anti-sex, even within marriage viewpoint, only now is it mentioned, and it's the only thing mentioned. So this is a very odd thing to be in Jude, just as a side note. So we see Reverend Ray and some guy talking to Reverend Ray. And the guy says, "What does God say about homosexuality?" And Reverend Ray says, "Nothing. He only talks about temple prostitutes. Or, worst, offensive gays." And Jack Chick says, "You really think so? You're in for a shock." And so they talk about the lie about homosexual offenders is found in 1 Corinthians 6:9 in the 1984 NIV Bible. Now let's see, 1 Corinthians 6:9. Let's maybe if we spell it correctly, right? That might help. And let's go to, can we do NIV up here? All right. "Or do you not know that that's why. Oh, well, it says men who have sex with men, but it probably mentioned, I'm assuming the 1984 version mentioned homosexuals, right? This is a very special type of cherry picking, isn't it? So much for the incorruptible word of God, right? And if we check this out, the men who have sex with men, it says the words men who have sex with men translate two Greek words that refer to the passive and active participants in homosexual acts. So this has to do with, just gay sex. There have been some criticism of this as a concept that, the idea here is that you're sexually immoral, you're an adulterer, you're having sex outside of marriage, etc. What about the concept of two men that are in love and they're in a loving, committed, and legally married relationship and they are having monogamous sex with each other? Is God against that? And that's kind of an argument that shows up, and you can sort of see the reasoning for it, right? A lot of this stuff for sexual immorality, it really has to do with having sex outside of marriage in a lot of ways, right? Whether you have sex before you're married or you're married and you have sex with other people, you're having sex with people you're related to, you're having sex with animals. This is interesting. So, I'm not really here to say that it does or doesn't support that concept, but I do want to point that out, that it is a critique of this section, that maybe it doesn't apply to people that are in a monogamous, loving, married relationship. So it talks about Leviticus 18. God gave Moses a list of sins: adultery, incest, child sacrifice, ? Abortion? No. Sodomy and bestiality. And then it talks about thou shalt not lie with a man, etc. And, again, these are a lot of sexual sins. Where are all the Jack Chick tracts about incest, bestiality, child sacrifice, adultery? Where are all those chick tracts? I don't know if there's any about adultery. We'll check them out later. But why does he focus? He's got like 6 or 8 about just being gay. Wouldn't adultery be more common than gay people having sex? Or people having sex outside of marriage? Isn't that more common than both of those? Very odd. So God was absolutely clear. All of these are abominations. God made it clear. He was even against committed. Oh, we'll see. He's talking about us. Committed same-sex unions. His blessing only comes to marriages between male and female, created to be one flesh. So, of course, we can point out, the concubines that were allowed, Lot having sex with his daughters. Was that created to be one flesh? Is that a marriage between a male and a female? Lot having sex with his 2 daughters while he was blackout drunk? If we're going to be talking about Lot's family, there's a lot of stuff that's sanctioned in the Bible. If you catch leprosy, then the treatment is to take 2 birds, kill 1 bird, rip it open, and dip the live bird in the blood of the dead bird, and then sprinkle that blood onto the person that has leprosy. So I'm not sure that we could even say that the Bible is a good source of what stuff we should even care about, right? But again, his blessing seems to just come from whatever he wants. I mean, who was it? Abraham that was married, and he ends up having a child because he had sex with a sex slave. And this was clearly sanctioned. This was given a blessing. So this idea between a marriage between one man and one woman created to be one flesh, that's the only type of sexual union that's, cared for in the Bible. No, it's not. So we see Romans 1:26 talking about even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. This has been argued, if you're born gay, then it is within your nature to have sexual relationships with the same sex. So this idea that they're going against their nature, this would be something that you are born straight and a demon oppresses you into having sex that you are normally not going to engage in, perhaps while you're drunk, etc. And it talks about men burning with lust with one another, working that which is unseemly, and it describes unseemly as shameful or indecent. It's weird the words he chooses to explain. So in Romans 1:32 it says, "Who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them." Now, if this is what I'm thinking, we're talking about, again, all kinds of sins, right? We're not talking about just, 2 same-sex people engaging in sexual acts. Yeah, look at this. They're full of... Furthermore, just as they do not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what ought not be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. So this seems very, very, in line with a lot of modern fundamentalist beliefs, that if you don't follow the Christian God, you, number one, know he exists, know he has given you rules, and know these rules are how you get into heaven. But however, you are so sinful that God just lets you do everything bad. And you are everything bad. You have no morality. You can never be trusted. You're constantly lying, and you hate yourself. You hate everybody else. You do all these terrible things. You have, every time you're given a choice of what to do, you only do the thing that's against God, specifically against God. That's your whole life now, is to exist to be against God. And you're going to go to hell, but you love it and you do it anyway. What kind of logical sense is that? Think about all of the people that are not Christian and how most of them don't do constant, they're not in a constant state of doing these horrible things. And also this ending part where they approve of those who practice them. What is sinful to a Christian is not necessarily sinful to somebody else. And so, of course, it would be approved of. For example, wearing jewelry. That was something against the Christian beliefs. Or having, sexual relations with somebody. That they both of you consent to have sex, but you're just not married. Something like that is considered to be super, super evil and horrible, and you deserve death. Having sex while a woman is on her period, that is also something that deserves death. This is an abomination, or not death, that they have to be separated from everybody else. Deserves exile, which is essentially almost guaranteed death. So this idea that, it's okay to, if people want to have sex while one of them's on a period, okay. That shouldn't be demonized, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That shouldn't be demonized. So this idea that, they should approve of those who practice those things, not necessarily, gossip and lying and murder and stuff. How many murderers are Christian? How many murderers are envious and jealous and gossip, arrogant and boastful? I mean, even just in my own church, I can think of so many, maybe not murderers, but I can think of so many of those people. So it's very, very holier than thou, very disconnected from reality, though, is what I would say. Hypocritical, disconnected from reality. So now here's Charlie again. Charlie is in shock. He's been violated by his trusted coach. He feels dirty and ashamed. Yeah, he should go to the police. He should. Or he should talk to a trusted adult. But if Charlie embraces the gay lifestyle, his homosexual spirit will feed on others. Again, this is the worst sexually transmitted disease, according to Jack Chick. The worst one is the disease of homosexuality. That's the worst one. These are not people that are of sound mind entering into relations that they choose. These are people that are unable to control themselves. They're wild, influencing children in harmful ways and spreading along this STD, the spiritual STD, basically. Yeah, that's what he thinks. His heart will harden against God. So we see these, it's a gay bar, it looks like. They're drinking, got some drag queens in the back, dancing, okay. And they look like they're just having a time, like they're just chatting. The guy in the middle looks like he's just had like a really delicious drink. Charlie looks like he's had a little too much to drink and maybe he's getting too tired. This doesn't look like this could be a non-gay bar, right? This could be just three dudes talking and having drinks, Charlie needs to know that 2,000 years ago, God put a plan in motion to set homosexuals free. So he's going to be referring to Jesus and stuff, but what happened before that? So before that, God's like, we got all these gays. Hang on, I need time to develop a vaccine. And then here's the vaccine is Jesus. Why did it take him so long? Jesus Christ, God the Son, was sent to earth for Charlie and for everyone else, because we're all sinners. Charlie's a victim of this abuse of authority and abuse of a minor. But in Jack Chick's mind, no, Charlie's a dirty sinner. Okay. Jesus was rejected, betrayed by a close friend, and beaten. But why did God take all this abuse from sinful man? Because he loves us no matter what we've done. Now, if we are to believe Jack Chick's concept of how to catch the gay, you are traumatized as a young person. And then you become demonically oppressed by the gay demon, basically. So to say no matter what we've done, it's like punishing Charlie for the fact that he was victimized. Isn't that horrifying? I like how homosexuality is here, but we get all of the other ones, right? Homosexuality, and lesbianism. I guess being a lesbian is not homosexuality. Okay. He could just write gayness. Or he could have just put homosexuality and then instead of lesbianism, bisexuality? I don't know. But we see all this other stuff. Backstabbing. Where's the chick tracts on that? Disobedience to parents, gossip, pride. There's, some of these have chick tracts. Most of them don't. And I would say the rest of these are probably statistically more common than being gay. And then we see the John 3:16, God so loved the world, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to get into how questionable it is that God had to send himself to die temporarily in order that paid for the sins in a system he created. It doesn't make any sense anyway. And so here we have a guy, Brad. We're talking about Brad again. We can tell from his jaw, but he just looks a little different. When Brad hears the gospel, he rejects it because his heart is hardened against God. Well, who did that? From what I remember, God hardened the Pharaoh's heart. It wasn't the Pharaoh that did it. I don't want your Jesus junk. I'm happy with my lifestyle. Again, this is not how gay people talk. I don't want to hear this because there's nothing wrong with me, or I don't want to hear your Jesus junk. I didn't ask for this. Stop shoving your religion in my face. But I don't think I've ever... let me know if you've heard a gay person say, or if you are a queer person that has ever said, I don't want your Jesus junk. I'm happy with my lifestyle. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness. Let's see what we're talking about here. That's such a weird verse to include, other than trying to show, they reject God's message. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. For the message of God is the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. So that's what for it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise. So this is similar to, only the fool says in his heart there is no God. But okay. For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. So basically, because this is very clunkily worded, basically it's saying God only wants people who are not smart because they are gullible enough or they don't know enough that they accept this explanation. That's what it says. Even I don't believe that. That's really insulting to Christians, isn't it? This reminds me of there was an FLDS documentary, and one of the young women, she was maybe 15 years old and was being abused by a lot of the young girls were being abused by the cult leader. And she said something like, yeah, people say that I'm brainwashed, that we're being brainwashed by, I think his name was Michael, being brainwashed by Michael. And I say, yeah, we are. Michael washed the sins away from my brain and made it pure. That's what this is giving me. It's very, very that. Charlie learns that all have sinned, but Christ wants to make him a new creature. If Jesus died for me, I want him. Why? Oh, he's reading Uninvited. That was our first one that we read. God the Holy Ghost tugs at Charlie's heart. There's a lot of different gods, right? What he does next will determine where he spends eternity. So he's now on his face, praying. That demon that Coach Brad gave him is now gone. The angel's telling him to go away, you evil demon. And Charlie says, Jesus, I believe in you. Lord, come into my heart and clean up my life. The unclean spirit leaves. Charlie's name is now in the book of life. Years later, Brad dies of complications from AIDS and stands before Jesus. I can't make this up. Isn't this like a meme? So he's standing before Jesus, and Jesus looks like white shiningness sitting on a throne with no face, and says, I don't know, what does God sound like?
I loved you so much that I shed my last drop of blood for you. But you spit on my blood and trampled my sacrifice. You chose your lifestyle over me. Hey, angel standing next to me. Is Brad's name in the book of life?
No, Lord, his name does not appear.
Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, which is also written in Matthew 25:41. But you wouldn't know it because you died from complications from AIDS.
So in the next panel, we see this angel literally like at a cliff, literally tossing his body, which is odd because I feel like in a spiritual realm with an all-powerful God, as soon as he says, depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, I feel like it would be more dramatic for him to just poof. He's like, he's in hell, surrounded by flames, or he's engulfed by flames to be deported into hell or something. But now we have to imagine that there's like a cliff. And these angels are different sizes. This book angel's super huge, and then the physical labor angel is a lot smaller. So now, Brad's spirit is like freaking out. God's yelling at him. And the angel has to physically pick him up, walk him over to this cliff, and just toss him in there. That just seems so limiting in our imagination, doesn't it? Coach Brad joins all those who died in their sins. And we see Romans and 1 Corinthians kind of referenced here with the gossipers, liars, whoremongers, sodomites, haters of God, etc. But what happened to Charlie? Charlie was saved.
Enter thou into the joy of the Lord, which is written in Matthew 25:21.
Gays are not born that way. They choose to be homosexuals. Wait, what? No, they were victimized into being homosexuals according to this belief. They were victimized. They were infested with demons. They need to be exorcised of their demons, according to Jack Chick's belief. So who chose that? Nobody chose that. Can't even be internally consistent. Common problem. God hates their lifestyle, and their lifestyle opposes God. Flee from it, or the devil will destroy your life. Your only chance for joy and heaven is Jesus. There is no other way. And Jesus is talking on this, next to a tree, on some grass, talking to a bunch of people.
He that believeth not is condemned already.
You must choose either Jesus Christ or the lake of fire. Again, that's, Pascal's wager, for those of you guys playing bingo. And then believe in the Lord Jesus, you'll be saved. And then we got our final page again about praying that you're a sinner and nobody else can save you, etc., etc. Well, somehow that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yeah. Which I'm actually really surprised to say that wasn't as bad as I thought. But, overall, I would say more than being horrifying. I think the first one we read was horrifying, was offensively horrifying. This one's just really confusing. Just really, really confusing. Like this study about, oh yeah, 500 sex partners. Okay, so what? What are we including this for? What does this prove? It kind of reminds me of when I tell my students, to stay on topic, and here's a certain list of things that need to appear in your essay, your presentation, etc. And some of them will just start quoting stuff. So if I asked recently, I had asked for an essay on nations, and there were certain things to include with the nations, and a lot of them started talking about exact locations, the size of the country, a little bit about the history of the country, the politics of the country, like political issues like civil war or something. I didn't ask for that. And I tell them, this is factual. Yes. It's sourced, it's referenced, yes. It's written, adequately, or it's written well, yes. But it's not on anything I asked for, so I can't give you points for it. You just wasted your own time. This is why we got to try to stay on track. And I feel like that's what we're having here, We're trying to talk about AIDS. And somehow he's just talking about, this one study said that gay guys have a lot of sex partners. Okay. And that they have other STDs. Oh, okay. That doesn't, so what? What are we learning here? So this was just overall pretty confusing. The idea that we're, caving into the gay agenda by being more accurate in our labeling so people don't think they're immune to AIDS because they aren't gay, the idea that the day of silence is just, it's to make the gays happy. Yeah, really. Again, this is a reflection not on the LGBT community. This is a reflection on Jack Chick and people who think like him. So, on that note, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know if you've ever had to deal with this type of thinking. If you used to think this way, like I used to think this way, what changed for you? What got you out of that thinking? Otherwise, I'll see you guys later. And as always, thanks for listening.